You know, I am super happy the One Ring is banned. How's it going, everybody? I am thrilled right now, and it's because of a couple of things. One, it looks like Wizards of the Coast is finally looking at a format that I have been wanting to play more of for a while. As I've made mention many times on my channel, I love playing Modern in Magic the Gathering, but I haven't really enjoyed touching Modern for a little bit, and there's been a couple of reasons for it. The primary one is there's barely anywhere to play Modern around me, which may actually be in some small part fault of the secondary problem, which is that Modern apparently hasn't been super fun for a lot of people. Now, I don't have as much perspective on this as I would like to, because I've basically been out of the format for a few months, which, again, is not where I want to be. I want to just keep playing Affinity and Hardened Scales in the format, but we're going to get into why even that may be a bit difficult for me going forward. But we'll see. We'll see how things end up going. Let's talk about this recent banned and restricted announcement so we can get an idea of what multiple Magic the Gathering formats are about to look like. So let's go ahead and get into the actual announcement itself so that we have an idea of some of the reasons why Wizards of the Coast has decided to ban these cards. First, we'll go ahead and look at the individual cards that are banned. I'll give my quick take, and then we'll read their take for a little more context, because for some of these, I actually don't have the amount of context I wish I did. The first thing we have to talk about is that in Pioneer, Jegantha has been hit. Now, Jegantha has seen bannings in multiple formats this time around, being hit in Explorer, Pioneer, and Modern, since Explorer is kind of sort of just Pioneer, but not Pioneer, with Alchemy cards, because Wizards of the Coast is really weird about their formats, and for some reason we don't just have one online client. That's a problem for other people far more experienced with the issue to talk about. Anyway, Jegantha being banned, for me, is a fantastic thing. Not because I think Jegantha is an overtly powerful card. I do think it's annoying that it's an auto-include in basically any deck with the mana symboling that can support it, but my problem with Jegantha goes a little deeper. I do not need Modern to be Commander. I do not need Standard to be Commander. I do not need Pioneer to be Commander. I like when these formats are their own formats and are not grabbing a broken smorgasbord of what works in a 4-player singleton casual format and tries to glue them into another format that doesn't need to be here. I really think the Companion Experiment can just be considered a failure at this point. I may love Ikoria. It may be the set that brought me back into Magic the Gathering in this latest run, because the mutate mechanic is just that fun, but there is no world where we need this mechanic in the game. This mechanic can leave and everything will be honky-dory. After that, we get to the Modern bans, and Amped Raptor, Jegantha, and One Ring are our bans. I first want to talk about the One Ring. I hate this card. I own 7 copies of this card because I found them on sale, not them themselves, but the actual One Ring packs on sale at a Walmart, and got very, very lucky. But this does not mean that I like the card. I just wanted to go ahead and put the bona fides out there for people who were just gonna go, you just don't like the One Ring because you don't have money. First of all, you suck at Magic the Gathering. Secondly, you make the entire game worse to play. Thirdly, thank you for the engagement. However, that all said, the One Ring is a plague on this game. I'm not even gonna lie. I don't think it's just the universe's beyond problem. It's the fact that there are certain things that work mechanically from a bottom-up perspective in Magic the Gathering that do not translate mechanically well into Magic the Gathering from a term of game balance. One Ring is a nutty card in every format that it's played in, but in Modern, we had to deal with 60% of the decks in the format using the One Ring. I did everything that I could to not play it in my Hardened Scales deck because I just don't like the damn card. And my girlfriend happens to be a Tron player who had this in copies of 4 and also multiple copies of Phyrexian Metamorph and Sculpting Steel, so I got to deal with my only win con that could ever work against her being Walking Ballista. And if that's not fun for me, I know that's not fun for anybody else. And it's not just Tron, it's multiple decks that were propped up and stabilized by this catch-all card. And catch-all cards are not a good thing for the health of the game. This is an issue that multiple card games have ran into at certain points in their lifespans. Yu-Gi-Oh! Ran into this problem when every deck was just a pile of the same good stuff. Magic the Gathering should not run into this problem, but making a colorless card, especially in formats where color doesn't even matter because we all have fetch lands that can get us everything that we want, it's already enough to have the card be colorless, even though in most formats that doesn't matter. The card being indestructible, meaning that the only real option to get rid of it was exiling it, and exiling it not even really mattering because getting rid of the One Ring doesn't get rid of the one turn of protection that they get consistently, and the fact that it is in fact an artifact means that it can be grabbed with Karn. The card is nutty. The card needed to be gone. It needed to be gone for a long time. There was no reason for this card to be in Modern in the first place. It's fine for stupid nutty shit like this to exist in Commander, where people are doing things like Unwinding Clock to abuse this mechanic. That's fine. What's not fine is a competitive format that is supposed to be 1v1 and essentially fair between the two players, having this card in it. It really destabilizes the balance of the game. It props up decks against matchups that they're not supposed to have a very strong matchup against. Tron is a tempo deck. Its weakness is supposed to be an aggro deck, and One Ring basically eliminated that weakness entirely. These are not good things from a game design perspective. These are mistakes from a game design perspective. And if this card's price can continue to plummet, then people can get access to it in Commander, where cards should be more accessible in the first place. But we're going to talk about the accessibility of cards a little bit more here in a second. The next card we have that is banned, like I said, is Amped Raptor. Amped Raptor, I'm going to be perfectly honest, I haven't actually fought the Boros Energy deck. When Modern Horizons 3 came out, I got to play in a few Modern tournaments, and then just kind of dropped off, mostly because my local area only got Modern tournaments for a very brief amount of time before finally getting rid of them again. It seemed like if the core set of players who were there to play Modern weren't there consistently every day, then there was no other influx of players, and that's how a format dies. I don't know if Amped Raptor is one of those problems, but I can go ahead and take the advice that I've heard from other people who play far more Modern than me and say that Amped Raptor being banned isn't enough. Galvanic Discharge was another card that needed to be banned because it gives you the energy while also being effectively a lightning bolt that can scale up to other lightning bolts. The reason that burn decks and mid-range decks were running lightning bolts and unholy heats for a long time in Modern is because you needed the unholy heat as the other half of the removal package to get rid of high-value creatures, but Galvanic Discharge basically removed the need to run both of those cards because the Discharge could get rid of high-power toughness creatures as well as low-power and toughness creatures by simply storing the energy. Guide of Souls has also been stated to be one of the problems in the energy deck, but apparently Amped Raptor has been picked by Wizards for a reason they'll get into when we talk about that. But now let's get to something a little spicy, the unbans for Modern. Faithless Looting got unbanned, and I'm actually very happy about this. I know people who have played Goryo's Vengeance and other Reanimator decks in Modern, and they are thrilled to have a Faithless Looting back on the table. This card really did not need to be banned for as long as it did. I feel like it really didn't do much more than any other repeating discard outlet we had access to. If the biggest problem with Faithless Looting is being able to put things in the graveyard too easily, then the Underworld Cookbook from Modern Horizons 2 needed to be gone a long time ago. But we also have Green Sun Zenith back, which, from what I understand, this is before my time playing Modern, but this was mostly used to get back Dryad Arbor out of your deck and just have an easy 1-mana ramp. I'm familiar with that spell, mostly because there's a friend of mine, Biminum, who helped me do the podcast, who uses this play all the time in Commander. Then we have the unbanning of Splinter Twin, which was a massive, massive deck that basically plagued this format for a long time. But again, this is before my time. I don't have a lot of experience with Splinter Twin. I'm actually excited to see what decks people build up with the new Splinter Twin coming back into the game, since the power level of the game has crept up high enough that I feel like maybe cards like Splinter Twin are going to be fine. Again, I've heard nothing but horror stories about how strong this card is, but I have not personally played against it, so I'm willing to see what happens from here. Then we have Mox Opal. This is where we need to get into the conversation about card accessibility. There was another problem with the One Ring in Modern, and it wasn't just the fact that the card was overpowered, it's also that the card was too expensive, which is not a reason that Wizards bans cards in Modern, but it should be a reason that they should look at changing how they operate things in their game. Cards in Modern should not be $80 to $100, and if you think that that's an okay thing for them to be, then I'm going to ask you a very, very poignant question. Do you get $100 of fun out of a single card? And if your answer is, I don't know, or I've never considered that, then maybe it's time to start considering that. Ask yourself, when you are spending your dollars on Magic the Gathering stuff, are you getting an adequate amount of enjoyment for the dollars you are spending on these cards? If you are buying a deck, right? Let's say you pick up one of my $15 Commander decks. There's a lot of fun you can have there for $15, but if you are needing to spend $1,000 to get a Modern deck built, is that okay? Are you getting $1,000 of enjoyment out of that? Are you getting a new copy of Baldur's Gate 3, several hundred hours of couch time with Smash Brothers with your friends? Are you getting hours and hours into your favorite RPG? Are you getting all of those experiences multiplied several times worth of fun? Or are you just spending money on the card because you feel like you need to keep up? And if it is the latter, then maybe it's time to pick a different format or start looking at Wizards of the Coast and writing to complain about how they handle reprints in the game. Which leads me to Mox Opal. Mox Opal has been unbanned, which is a fantastic thing for Affinity players like me. Hardened Scale players as well will get very, very good use out of a card like this because it's basically another Springleaf Drum that we don't have to spend mana into. The explosive turns that we are able to take with a card like this is fantastic, but let's say that you're a person who wants to play those decks and is not able to afford a Mox Opal. Well, what do? Well, there's budget versions of at least Affinity that work perfectly fine to a degree, but why should we be okay with Mox Opal costing, what, $170? $260? The market price on all these is sitting at $80, but as soon as the unban was announced, all of these shot up so high, it's insane. At a certain point, you have to wonder, is it okay to just proxy these things? Are you getting $160 worth of enjoyment out of a Mox Opal when you buy it? Is the feeling of dopamine that comes down, not one Mox Opal, sorry, 4 Mox Opals. Are you getting $640 of enjoyment out of a Mox Opal when you play Modern? Do you think that this $640 is worth that Mox Opal? I don't think it is. I accept that this is a thing that is going to be required to play at the highest level of Modern. I get that. But why should we as players accept a game being this predatory in their prices? I feel like Mox Opal being unbanned is maybe a signal that we are going to get a reprint of Mox Opal, but that reprint is going to once again be at Mythic and once again be a chase card. And unlike with Commander, when once upon a time we had the rules committee to basically punish the wallets of Wizards of the Coast and everybody collectively when they decided to go after these chase cards like the dopamine fiends that they are, what is there to stop that from happening here when Wizards unbanned the card? I really do feel like in the next year or two, we're going to get a Mox Opal reprint, and the reprint is going to affect its price well, but not well enough to matter. Cards should be like 10 or 20 bucks. They should not be more than that. Accessibility to game pieces is far more important than the pieces being kept out of reach from players. And if you think players should not be allowed to hold certain cards, then you're just bad for this game too. Stop playing this game. You make it worse on everybody else. Again, if you want the super expensive Mox Opal, that exists. You can get a Masterpiece Mox Opal if you want to spend $600 on that. $600 for Mox Opal is less then the $640 you would need to spend on 4 of them to play it in Modern. And one of these things, it is more worth the money. If you're getting something purely for your personal enjoyment, then that may be worth the money more, in my eyes, than something being required as a game piece, period. I'm happy the card is unbanned. I do think that affinity decks and scales decks benefit from this card being unbanned. I think that this card being unbanned is good for the game's health, to a degree. I just think that this card needs to be made available, but not just made available in a way that makes sense for players of the game who have ever-restricting tight budgets. Next, we have the legacy bans of Vexing Bauble and Psychic Frog, and you'll notice there is a pattern between both of these bans. They are both from Modern Horizons 3. Now, there's another topic that I haven't brought up here so much, and it's the rotating format problem of Modern and other high, just power formats. One of the appeals to these formats for the longest time was that you could buy once, cry once. You might have a $1,000 deck, but you could spend money on that deck over time and then have that deck available to you for years to come. That's not the case anymore. That stopped being the case a long time ago. Because now, we just have these cards in multiple formats, and they have once again caused problems in Legacy. Remember when Ragavan got banned out of Legacy? Because it was causing problems in there with older dated cards, like Days? Now we have Psychic Frog and Vexing Bubble being banned out of there as well. And I don't know if these cards are going to end up seeing a ban in Modern. I don't hear too much about these cards being problematic in Modern, but I do hear about them being problematic in Legacy. My problem is that I just don't play Legacy, so my perspective on these cards is very, very limited. But with that said, that does lead us into Wizards of the Coast's reasonings for these bans. And like I said, I'm happy about this ban list, but I'm also mixed for other reasons. So let's see if their perspective can maybe illuminate our perspective a bit. They say, welcome to the first banned and restricted announcement since we last spoke about changing announcement cadence to align closely with the competitive seasonal offerings. We are nearing the end of a round of Pioneer Regional Championship events, a series of Eternal Weekends, and a season of Modern Regional Championship qualifiers. In addition to gameplay on both Magic Arena and Magic Online, this gave our team a substantial amount of data to address any issues with each of the various competitive formats. Since our last announcement, Standard has seen the addition of Duskmourn and Foundations. Cards from both sets have propagated their way through the Standard metagame, providing ample diversity and color distribution and macro archetype representation, setting up our first Spotlight series coming to Atlanta in early 2025. By the way, when that Spotlight series comes here, I will be there as well, so maybe come hang out. You can dump an Atraxa Grand Unifier or Coma World Eater into your graveyard with fear of missing out and reanimate it with Zombify. Or maybe you'd rather use Screaming Nemesis and Heartfire Hero paired with Burst Lightning and Lightning Strike to dispatch your foes. Or maybe a handful of Duskmourn House of Horror Overlords along with Zur Eternal Schemer is more your speed. There's a lot to explore in Standard, and no matter your play preference, there's something for you to sleeve up and battle. We're very happy with the state of Standard. I'm going to be honest, I have enjoyed the little bit of Standard I've played on Arena, so I'm kind of okay with this. I play Sultai mid-range on Arena, and it feels great. So I'm okay with this. Then we have Pioneer. They said, we've mentioned the Pioneer metagame closely since our last banned and restricted announcement, and it has looked healthy and diverse. The format has a variety of macro archetypes, and all of the major decks are well within an acceptance win and play rate. While deck diversity looks good, we believe Jegantha is hurting the format's diversity by reducing the pool of viable cards from many decks. Jegantha is played in many Pioneer decks, appearing as a companion for most decks that can cast it and don't have key cards that violate its companion restriction. The value of having access to an extra card in games where resources are tight means most decks can play a Jegantha, do so, regardless of if it fits in their strategy. This homogenizes the cards that these decks play, with top-end cards in particular suffering. It's hard to justify having a personal favorite card for a metagame-specific call if you have to give up Jegantha for it. Okay, cool. We don't need to look at any more of that. I agree with that. Jegantha is an easy slot in too many decks. Going into this announcement, it was clear that Modern needed the most help among our competitive formats. Our previous actions in August addressed the most glaring issue, which was Nadu, but things haven't gotten much better. We analyzed a handful of options to try and get the format into a spot that our players would enjoy and be excited about. However, we felt more was needed. Our players are the backbone of competitive Magic, We can observe tournament results and analyze, I just completely lost my space, analyze the metagame and dig into win rate numbers all day long. But it's all of you who are playing these formats. And at the end of the day, it's our job to ensure you're having as much fun as possible. Modern isn't the same format it was years ago. Yeah, it's not the same format it was years ago because you keep printing Modern Horizon sets. Stop doing that and maybe we'll have a better format. Anyway, there are several cards we banned years ago. Since then, several new sets have been released, like Modern Horizons, which have made a sizable impact on the format. As such, we've decided it was time to set free a handful of cards. We'll start by talking through each of them. It's no secret that the One Ring has been a large part of the Modern metagame. In the late August announcement, we stated that there wasn't a dominant One Ring deck and that it appeared in a variety of strategies, even propping up some of the more fringe archetypes. While it does appear in many archetypes, it has solidly become part of the most dominant strategy, Modern Boros Energy. Okay, this is a problem. This right here, I disagree with the ideas presented here. My reasoning is very, very simple. There doesn't need to be a One Ring deck for the One Ring to be a problem. All there needs to be is too much of the damn card in the format. The card itself being a linchpin in multiple strategies, regardless of color, regardless of flow, regardless of flavor, is a problem. You can't put a lightning bolt in every deck, not even every control deck, but you can seem to put a One Ring in basically any deck, and it will just suddenly work better. They said that the opportunity cost of the One Ring is nearly too low, and its presence in events has become tiresome for many players, acting as a tool for self-preservation and a source of card advantage. It requires no commitment to any particular color. We believe it is clear, as it has been for many of you, that Modern would be a more enjoyable format without its conclusion, and thus the One Ring is banned in Modern. Now, it should be noted that the One Ring was banned, or is now being banned, 1.5 years after its release. We've had to deal with the card for 1.5 years in the Magic the Gathering competitive formats. So, what does this mean? It means that if you know how cards are printed by Wizards of the Coast, cards are printed in what's called a 2-year cycle. This means that all decisions for the game from one moment to the next are done in chunks of 2 years. Well, not chunks of 2 years. It's more that they have to be done 2 years in advance to account for the amount of time it takes to design a set, print a set, and get it into the hands of players. This means that we are hitting the ass end of the 2-year mark that the One Ring has been available in Modern, and only at the ass end is it being taken out. This basically means the One Ring is being banned in Modern because Wizards is no longer making money from people chasing the One Ring. I know that's a very cynical way to look at things, but I also think it's the correct way to look at things. Wizards of the Coast only banned the One Ring after it was clear they were no longer making money off of the One Ring. If making money off of your chase cards has to be done in tandem with keeping a healthy game format, you cannot keep a healthy game format. You have to be willing to let certain cards go, take certain financial hits for the overwhelming health of the game, because you only get short-term gains as a business when you go for this strategy of printing a chase card and having it be supremely well played. Everybody loves it. Everybody learns to hate it. Everybody starts wanting the card gone. And then suddenly now you're going to get rid of it. You need to be more proactive with these kinds of bans, because making sure that players do not abandon formats because they are tired of dealing with these cards is kind of paramount. And waiting until you are no longer making money off of these cards is very telling to the Magic the Gathering community. I'm happy the One Ring is banned. I am not happy about the environment in which it is banned in, because that environment needs to be made more healthy. You could ban 1 billion One Rings, and you will not make this environment more healthy. You need to change the way that you are designing this format. Fewer Horizon sets, fewer printed for Modern things, fewer last-minute changes so that we can make something profitable for Commander players. Fewer of these things for Modern, and Modern will be a healthier format. I know that it's hard to juggle all these things as both a game designer and a business, but Magic is the most profitable card game in the entire world. You've got the ability, you've got the data, you've got the manpower, as long as Hasbro isn't cutting your nose to spite your face. Removing the One Ring is certainly a hit to Boros Energy, Modern's most played and most consistently dominant deck, but it also impacts several other strategies. We'd like to ensure that we reduce the overall win and play percentages of Boros Energy directly, though we do not want to eliminate it from the format like we did most recently with Nadu. We considered many cards in deciding how to knock Boros Energy down a few pegs. Guide of Souls, which is the one that gives things flying, Ajani, which is the Planeswalker for it. Noctowl Pariah. Oh, I love how I mouse over Ajani and Noctowl Pariah. Oh, Ajani Noctowl Pariah. There we go. Anyway. Ajani Noctowl Pariah enters the battlefield, makes cats. Flage was considered for being gotten rid of. I know that Flage is something that players are also getting tired of dealing with as well, but they landed on Amped Raptor. Each of those options could reasonably be included in a few other archetypes, while Amped Raptor only appears in Boros Energy. Amped Raptor also allows for some of the deck's most explosive starts. Okay, so they're getting rid of Amped Raptor because more and more players we're using it only for energy, and it only affects the energy deck. Fair. They banned Jegantha. Many of the same reasons as explained for Pioneer are explained for Modern. They want to avoid cards that have more than one of the same mana symbol. Isn't a very interesting and fun thing to do for making your deck. Jegantha's clocking at around 40% of all Modern decks, from energy to zoo. The bans above should do a decent job in Modern to make it more fun and balanced, but could be even better. When we ban cards, we tackle the problems as they arise, using tournament data and community feedback to navigate the format into a better place. Okay, cool. So we don't need as much of the fluff here. Let's see when they get to the unbannings. Let's see, for much of Modern's history, artifact decks have been a pillar of the format, while decks like Original Affinity, Karklan's Ironworks, and even Lantern Control, but it has been a while since we've seen such a strategy be competitively viable. Hey, that hurts. We took a couple shots to evaluate artifact strategies in Modern Horizons 2 and 3, but alas, the power simply wasn't there. Mox Opal was banned in 2020 after the introduction of Modern Horizons, which included our good friend Urza, Lord High Artificer. While opening hands containing Mox Opal can be explosive, it's not like we ever stopped printing strong anti-artifact cards, looking at Meltdown and Wrath of the Skies. Our expectations is a better website, Jesus Christ. Our expectations are that reintroduction of Mox Opal will give rise to several interesting artifact strategies, both new and old, without adding any power to strong decks. And so Mox Opal has been unbanned. Green Sun Zenith has been banned since 2011, banned during a time where green decks were too strong. Green Sun Zenith's deck ban shouldn't have happened in the first place, but that was over a decade ago. Cool. So they're mentioning that Basking Broodscale combo decks can't even use Green Sun to find its namesake. Yawgmoth combo has basically fallen off the map, while finding Grist the Hunger Tide is nifty. Key cards like Orcus Bowmasters, Yawgmoth, and Zulaport Cutthroat are unable to be tutored. Can elves make a resurgence? Okay. So they mentioned that Sylvan Safekeeper was printed into Modern, and Wirewood Symbiote might be nasty targets to grab with the Green Sun Zenith, but ultimately, that's a risk they're willing to take. I'm willing to see it here. Back in 2019, Hogak was banned. Or it wasn't banned yet. Faithless Looting got banned for the sins of Hogak, and now Faithless Looting is coming back so that other decks like Arclight Phoenix can now come back into the format. Cool. Interesting. Now it says, it's a question for the ages. Would Splinter Twin be strong in today's Modern? Twin was banned back in 2016 after consistently being at the top of the metagame and taking down a few Pro Tours. The fear of tapping out into 3 open mana and dying was real. Do you hold mana open for removal or try to progress your board state in hopes of getting the game over before they can assemble their 1-2 punch of Pestermite and Splinter Twin? History tells us that replacing Splinter Twin with Kiki Jiki doesn't cut it, so can 8 years of format evolution keep the Twin combo in check? We think that it can. Solitude, Force of Negation, Force of Vigor, and Flare of Denial are all different options that can be used to take care of that. Cool, we agree. Those are all decent removal options. I don't know if Dice for Removal is a great argument, but you know what? Fair. Those are all different ways that you can stop the Splinter Twin combo, and we'll see if that pans out in the game. Unlike Mox Opal, Faithless Looting, and Green Sun's Zenith, which can each support different strategies. Splinter Twin only supports the one strategy. And then they get into Legacy, where Psychic Frog and Vexing Bobble are banned. With the last announcement, we banned Grief to curb the dominance of Dimir Reanimator. We achieved that to some degree, but with Dimir Reanimator sitting at double the play rate of the next most played strategy and maintaining a strong win rate, we need more action, so Psychic Frog is gone. Okay, cool. And then the reason why Vexing Bauble is gone as well is likely because there are so many strategies in other formats that rely on free spells. And so just having a single stacks piece for all those is sometimes not the most healthy thing in the world. Vexing Bauble is a rather recent development in the Legacy metagame. It has proven to be a successful and powerful one, with a concerning win rate among decks that include multiple main deck copies of Bauble, and its inherent strength against a pillar of the format. It has been banned in Legacy. Cool, cool, cool. Nothing for Vintage, nothing for Alchemy. Explorer just has Jegantha, because Explorer is just going to match Pioneer. Eventually, it's just going to end up being Pioneer, basically. Okay, cool. So that's all the bans. That's the reasonings behind all the bans. I agree with the cards that were banned. I do think that Modern needs to be more heavy-handed. If Wizards is going to be more heavy-handed with printing big, dumb cards in the format, then they need to be more heavy-handed with removing big, dumb cards from the format. But that is just me. What do you guys think in the comment section below, though? I would like to know your thoughts. Again, especially for some of the game that I have not been as involved in lately, as my personal shift has been mostly in Commander, because it's easier to keep up with. It's easier to have friends that actually have a deck to play against. Just let me know what you think in the comment section below. Hit the like button if you haven't already, and as always, everybody, insert in the video tagline here. Hey, just wanted to give a quick thank you to all of my wonderful patrons who help keep me afloat and help keep this channel going. YouTube and Twitch are wonderful platforms, but at the end of the day, stability is not one of their strong suits. If you want to support my channel, then obviously Patreon is one of the best ways of doing that. Link is in the description. But I do want to personally thank everybody who has contributed to the channel. Those people would be Red Joker, Purple Poundini, Jemshin, Britzkrieg, Jupe the Malignant, Michael, Ravelern, Mabbity Babbity, Astral Frontier, Autumn and Angel, Nixie Chan, Mark Anthony, Victorian Alchemist, I'm not saying the last part of that, and you know that, Arcton Arclacier, Kiratorian, Dren Hadamata, Jordan M, John L, Lord Bleck, Smiling Game Master, and Fireshard. And everyone else who supports my channel and lets me do what I do full time. This is a dream job of mine that I never believed that I would be able to take full time, and with your help, I've been able to do it. So thank you so very much for that. Thank you for watching the video. I hope you all enjoy, and I hope you all are having a wonderful time. I will see you all in the next one, hopefully.